selling with AI. What I thought we'd do just to get us going is I'd be interested to find out what you guys are seeing in the world of sales at the moment. So we're going to do just a little kind of poll, which is sales today. When I say it's a poll, what I'm going to do is give you 5 options, A, B, C, D, E. And then when I come to the end, I'll say, look, could you put into chat which 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of those are you seeing? Yeah, get us up and running and get our brains into gear before we really start to hit the afterburners. So you might be seeing that customers are more advanced in their sales process. Yeah, we get involved, sorry, in their buying process. We get involved later. A is for advanced. There's more information out there. They're doing their own thing to find out about what it is that could help them with their problems. They're sorting it on their own. They don't really get us involved until later on. You might be seeing that. What else might you be seeing? You might then see that customers are more biased, more demanding, demanding for what it is that they want to do, because they've spent some time and effort in working out what it is that they're trying to achieve. So you might be seeing that, be biased. Now, it sounds as though the customers have got it all sorted. It's great being a customer, except the world is a more confusing place. There's more stuff going on. We sometimes talk about VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. So actually there is scope to help them. So we might see that customers are also more confused. We might also see that there are more people than ever involved in the decision making. The decision making unit is bigger. There's more stakeholders, more people on this buying committee that have got something that they're trying to achieve, something that's specific to them, business related, personal as well. So we've got more people we've got to engage and satisfy. And then we might see that there are more emotional factors. So by that, more those kind of personal factors that I've said already. Yeah, so it could be things which people are feeling the risk or feeling the stress, feeling the strain, yeah, or the opportunity, the excitement. And we need to talk more about these things. So A, B, C, D, E. If you could pop into chat, which 1, 2, 3, 4, or all of those are you seeing? Which of those are you seeing? The Mighty Mouse, love it, is seeing E. Yeah, more emotional. That's because if you're a mouse, they're probably scared. What else are people seeing there? Okay, I see a couple in the private thing there. We're seeing all, somebody said. Yeah, B, C. Yeah, so a lot of mixture of all of these. Well, that's what we tend to see. We tend to see, depending who we're working with, if not one, all of those. So, okay, good. That's all right, Shell. And Mighty Mouse is better. But problem is I got a very visual, a very visual brain, and I've now got something
Takes
going
me back
on
to my
there.
youth.
Know how to throw somebody on a webinar. John said here, all mainly ABD. Yeah, later demanding, and there's more people being demanding because they've sorted all that stuff out. Out of all of those, I'd say D, more people involved in the decision. Again, not a surprise, not a surprise. People who might not have been involved before or wouldn't have been involved at lower levels of decision making are kind of now having to have their say, so risk compliance, legal potential. Okay, good. Good. So, okay, that's interesting. And of course, AI is stuff that can help us with this. So that's sales today. Our aim then is to give you some areas for quick wins. That is the main aim of this webinar. We want to give advice, ideas, guidance. If you have questions, like I say, fire those into the chat. We'll try and answer those. But really, it's to try and give as much as we can to help people make this, I'd say, exciting shift. So 3 parts, it's like a 3-part play. We'll cover the mindset that we need to be able to use AI in selling. We will touch on the tools, but a biggest part is going to be the application. I want to give you stuff that you can take away and use. That's our sign of success if people are tomorrow or this afternoon using some of this stuff immediately. We set a high bar. So, look, if you could just pop into chat a little bit about yourself, so what industry you're working in, what's your job title, that would be useful. Again, as we're working through, we can just start to tweak some of the examples. And we can very briefly introduce ourselves. So my name's Fred Copestake. I am founder of Brindis, which is a sales training consultancy. Last 25 years, been around the world, I calculated 14 times, worked in 38 different countries, trained over 10,000 salespeople. Um, it's a real honour and privilege to do that. And what that has allowed me to do is really focus on what are the challenges that salespeople have. Led me in 2020 to write my first book, Selling Through Partnering Skills, all about being more collaborative. We'll touch on that in a little bit. So that came out in 2020. I was locked down, same as everyone else. Watched Tiger King. I think by the time I got to the end of all of Netflix, and that was Tiger King, the last thing, I thought, come on, do something more constructive, Copestake. So I wrote second book, Hybrid Selling, and then the last book you can see there on screen, end of last year, end of 2024 actually, was Ethical Selling. So look, if you want a very fast introduction to what I'm all about, it's about having good people doing good things in a good way. Good, competent people achieving their results because they are sticking to a good solid process. Or you can also read that as decent people that are creating an impact and making a difference because of the way in which they go about doing their business. Both of those work. So, Tom, I've done all the talking. Over to you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. And a great intro. Um, so I'm Tom Ridley, everybody. I am the founder of a company called Amplify Consultancy. And what we do is we specifically help sales and commercial functions leverage AI more effectively in their go-to-market strategies. That doesn't, well, sometimes means in tech and infrastructure, but a lot of the time that's working around how your team is set up right now, the culture, the mindset, the processes that you have. And more often than not, it doesn't start with tech, it starts with the people. And that's a big thing throughout my career is I've been a leader, a coach, a facilitator in large scale change programs within large corporates, traditionally within either senior leadership or within sales functions. And I still believe that humans are the center of business and the center of sales. So this is not about AI for the sake of AI or AI to replace people. It's about how can we spend more time using this new technology. I say new, but it's been around a while now. But this new technology to help us have what I think most salespeople or sales professionals want, which is just more conversations with prospects, better conversation with prospects, and removing the mundane administrative stuff and the stuff that takes time away from the things that they like to do. As you can see, I'm a serial hobby starter. Half the hobbies are behind me on the wall. There's cars, there's Lego, there's stuff like that. But obviously, I do have a real interest in AI and technology. So I am not just someone that talks about it. I also build a lot with it on behalf of clients or building it into my own business or partner businesses that I work with. Probably covers it, I think, Fred.
Sorry. Yep. Okay.
Yes. This is the challenge that we find ourselves in. So I just talked about the space in which we currently operate, or most salespeople operate, is that they spend around about 20% of their time on value add activities and most of their time, 80%, on administrative tasks. This data came from a piece of research that HubSpot and Salesforce both contributed to, and they were mapping the time that people were spending in tools as well as doing anecdotal and anecdotal and quantifiable research with their accounts. So two of the most connected people to what actually goes on in the sales world in terms of activity. And when you put this on the page, it's quite stark that going back to what I just previously said in my intro, I think most of us would want to spend 100% of our time in that 20% zone where we're having conversations, we're closing, we're negotiating, doing discovery. I still love that. But so much of our time is spent on administrative function. What we really want to be doing is flipping that around. We want to be getting it the other way. And up until now, systems technology has been, and I'll use Salesforce and HubSpot as good examples. CRMs are great, but they are often, I don't say challenging to use, but time consuming to use. They aren't often configured in the ways that we like to work. And ultimately, we end up being these administrators. And what we want to be, spending more time, as I say, now in the 80% zone of value add activities. How do we do that? AI is the way to move all that administrative burden away from us and allow us to focus on what really matters, which is creating value for our prospects and having great conversations. So that's the goal of what Amplify stands for, and arguably what is achievable for everybody on this call, whether it's you as an individual or you leading a team or a function.
Super. Cheers, Tom. So yeah, let's get stuck into how can we do that? What can people do to make this happen? So I said we'd start with the first part, which is mindset. Um, and yeah, I mentioned when I wrote that first book, this was all about collaborative selling, how we can sit alongside customers and work with them. We don't want to be selling at people, even to them. It's working with them to help them make sense of stuff. So we collaborate. Secret to that is thinking like a partner. Think like a partner. Within the book, I talk about PQ or partnering skills, about how we can do that better. Now, that's a separate webinar. We'll do that one another day. But it's the think like a partner piece that is very interesting when we get into working with AI. Tom, over to you for this piece.
Well, thank you, because I think one of the things that the reason that you and I wanted to originally started talking was we found there was huge similarities in the way that people need to think like a partner with selling, and the same here is true of AI. Typically, most of the sales people that I coach, their entry point into AI is using it like a glorified search engine, like Google on steroids. They've probably dabbled with ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, things like that. But they've just put in a prompt, and in this case, quite a bad question, and in this case, in this image, very much so. The reality is that the AI is a multifaceted, highly capable tool, and in the same way we would have employees that are multi-talented, we need to start viewing AI that way. And we don't just put a singular input into an employee if we have them or a team member. We understand their capabilities, their strengths, their weaknesses, and we leverage them in the right way at a certain moment in time, and that will differ. And that's what partnering is. So the goal here is to move from thinking about single use and single prompt mechanisms in very simple ways to actually using an AI as a true partner in that conversation. How can they be arguably even our peer in our discovery, in our research, in our account planning, in our proposal creation, even in the way that we negotiate and create pricing and close deals? Every stage of the sales process, AI can be involved, and increasingly outside of that sales process in terms of setting sales strategy, it is also able to help us. The faster we see that it's a partner, not just a tool, the better we'll see your AI adoption, or the faster we'll see that AI adoption ramp. And to help
So
with that,
we hear people
on.
talk about talking to the AI, don't we? Or kind
Yes.
of, and you use that language a lot. That's something I noticed when we really start talking. You talk to the AI. It's like you are chatting to a colleague across the table, like you've done on the picture there.
100%. I say recently now, it's probably about 2 months ago, installed a piece of technology called Whisperflow. I'm not sponsored by them, but I would recommend it highly. Um, Whisperflow is a tool which allows me to dictate in and uses AI to transcribe what I'm saying across any of my tools, not just inside of AI tools. It's obviously AI driven because it's transcription, but now I'm in a situation where I barely use a keyboard. I do most of my work day to day, maybe clicking around the screen from time to time, but for the most part, talking to my AI, whether it's via my phone or via my computer now. Um, and I can say I've written the equivalent of, in the last 2 months, the equivalent of 3 novels according to Whisper's statistics on me, and I've probably typed the equivalent of a birthday card. because I'm treating it like a partner and having conversations all the time. And that can be, for anybody interested in what that goes across, that could be creating email content, writing proposals, but I also talk to my AI to sift through information around prospects that I've got that sit in emails and call transcripts. I create deals in HubSpot. I can schedule meetings via Calendly or via Google. So there's lots of different things I'm doing all via voice because I know how to partner with my AI tools.
Cool. So, so if we're talking bigger picture partnering, then, so the partnering plays that we've discussed in the past, you kind of said, well, there are various, but there's kind of five biggies. Do you want
Yeah.
to touch on those for us?
Yeah, so typically most people probably start top right of this circle in Intel or intelligence, where they'll use AI as a search mechanism. And we saw that in that first image, like a glorified Google. Um, there are some really cool things that AI can do now with deep research, and I think most people here probably are aware of that. How to leverage that effectively might differ, but there are some really powerful tools that AI has because it's got access to the whole internet and increasingly access to your systems as well, depending upon where you're using AI and in what tech infrastructure. But most people start there. And then from there, what most people do is then move to the next one down on the right hand side, which is craft. How do I create something? Typically, most people would end up creating an email or maybe nowadays trying to create a PowerPoint deck or a proposal or something like that. But the idea is though, like those two things, I think most people probably get. And it's the other ones that I don't think people use enough. And the reason for that is they typically require you to start thinking about the technology fundamentally differently. So insight, and we'll touch on insight, I think, on one of the slides that's coming up shortly. But insight for me is not just about how do you get intelligence, but it's how do you leverage that intelligence and layer on your own subject matter expertise. How do you layer in the value proposition of the organization that you work for and the products or services that you provide, and how do you pull in things from a broader socioeconomic landscape even, and then find the bits that your prospect won't know, and that's much more nuanced. Challenge is a really cool superpower because what can help you do is to stress test what you're up to. So whether or not it's checking an email for gaps or for opportunities that you might be missing in terms of building value or rapport with a client, for example, you can use it to take on a persona. And it's a very valuable tool that most people don't leverage fully in terms of sense checking what they're doing. And the top one is unstick. Unstick is problem solving fundamentally. How can you partner with AI, give it a wealth of information and context, and start to find a way through a challenge? Typically, I would say most people will probably gravitate towards, oh, I've got a pricing issue or a negotiation point, but it can also be used discovery or frankly, even earlier in a business generation perspective, lead generation mode, where you're trying to understand the problems of your target audience and your message isn't quite landing. So there's lots of ways we can use all these. And the true power comes when we start to use these interchangeably, even within the same mechanism. And that's probably when most of my coaches have that light bulb moment to think that it's not just using one of these at a moment in time, it's that you could be almost using all five simultaneously within a single conversation.
Yeah, I think some of the fastest results I've seen is when someone's gone craft and challenge at the same time. They craft an email and then right now challenge it and write it as though it's interesting to the customer rather than about yourself.
Yes. Yep.
Wow, and then that fits in with broader kind of sales fundamentals and kind of getting
One
the product not
100%.
problem
Yep.
or product problem not product. So
Yep.
cool. So let's we'll keep moving then, and we'll have a think about the tools because we've got a selection, haven't we?
We've got more than I can even manage, and I spend my whole time looking at this stuff. So, so this is as it says there, a Martech map. So there is some marketing stuff in here, but cards on the table. This was a 2024 view. So probably this is like 5 times the size now, just because of the rate at which new technology comes on the marketplace, it seems. But you can see here, each little square little icon represents a company logo that operates in a given space. it's impossible to ignore the fact that there'll be loads of crossover in terms of capability. Even outside of direct competitors, the marketplace is really, really confusing when it comes to what AI tech should I use, which is the best, which will deliver us the most value for me individually or for my team. It's really noisy. And in fact, that was one of the points we said, I think right at the start was, so many, like, but your not decision makers, the buyers here are looking at their marketplace, doing a load of research. This could be the same in your arena as well, particularly if you're in the tech landscape, about so much noise. This is what they're getting. But we don't need all this. So if you drill down, Fred,
Well, that's helpful.
yeah, this is still a lot. So this is just one segment of what was in the sales space, or one of the sales columns. This is just automation enablement and intelligence. And this doesn't actually include Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, all those things right now. So this is very niche tooling, arguably, at this point, but there's still too much. We don't need all that to do what I'm talking about in terms of leveraging AI effectively in sales.
Is that better?
It's better. And this probably now starts to look like, I think some of you in the chat, and please post up if there's any here that you use or of these operating in the same space of the tech that you do use. This is where we can see some of the wood for the trees. But even here, there's a lot of crossover, and there is a lot of AI capability that is not arguably the best implementation of AI, and possibly or probably not the best implementation of AI for your specific business. Particularly if I labor on a few like the Salesforces, the Lucias, the Zoom Infos, the companies that historically had an existing tech platform and have pushed AI into their platform now, they're building their AI capability in a way that best suits them and suits their go-to-market strategy and their value prop. It isn't necessarily always the best way for their clients to use that AI, and it comes with a whole load of biases and preconceptions that they build into their software that you don't necessarily agree with. So it can be great, don't get me wrong, but you need to know that when you're purchasing that type of tech and the AI functionality from it. So we can still go deeper. It can be simpler than this. So right now, cards on the table, I operate with all 5 of these in some capacity in my business, but the truth is that you could do it with just one of these. If Fred was to hold a gun to my head and tell me which one, it would be Claude right now. But I appreciate that some of you may be working in businesses that there's a corporate strategy that says we're going to take Copilot. Copilot can do everything we're going to talk about today as well. So can Gemini and so can ChatGPT. Perplexity is a bit of an outlier here, but it's a great model and ethically sound, which is why I include it. But this is fundamentally all you need to be able to sell more effectively with AI. The other tools that you saw on the previous screens, they're great and they can help streamline some of what you do, but just using these more effectively would enable you to leapfrog probably 95% of the other salespeople in your space, because statistics show us that it's only about 5% of the world's population are currently using AI on a day-to-day basis, give or take. So if you think about it from that perspective, just leveraging these tools to the maximum of the capacity that you can would put you ahead of most people in your space and give you so much more time back.
You've got one other little, I don't know, whenever I've heard it, it's not advice. It feels like you're giving a command to people when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, when we spoke about this a couple of times, where I say I deal a lot with tech companies and they're all using note takers, but I know there are lots of industries where this isn't commonplace to use a note taker on calls, or indeed even in person. And my honest advice is your sales calls are the most important. They're the most important data that you capture in any sales engagement. They're better than emails because you get tone of voice and you get visual cues and all that kind of stuff. And there's things said there that don't often get written down. And so if you don't harness your conversations you have with your prospects, you're doing yourself a disservice because they can really feed CRM, AI systems to be able to understand what's going on a deal with and actually take a whole load of effort away from what you do. Everybody on this call right now, if you're on Zoom, Google, or Microsoft, or you have access to a free note taker inside of everything you've got. So you should be able to at least get the transcription. There are some specialized tools, and I've worked with a few of those in developing their products out. And they're all great and they have different capabilities. But you don't need to spend anything to get going. If you're not using AI note takers, just take one of the three at the top there that's already in your stack somewhere and start leveraging those and using the context and information that those notes have on them to pull into your deal cycle CRM's AI outreach, AI driven outreach. As you said, a
Yeah,
command, not a suggestion. I said, do it now.
I'm also getting more bullish on this. I work with a lot of people who do have face-to-face meetings. Probably 90% of their meetings are face-to-face. And like, I haven't got any data on this yet, but I'm saying to people, look, I think we're at a period now where you can say, hey, look, can I record this? Can I pop this on a phone so I don't want to miss anything? I want to make sure we get all the goodness and really achieve what it is that you're trying to do. So some people are still a little bit uncomfortable with this, but I feel that it isn't going to be such a massive surprise as it might have been even 6 months ago. So
Agreed.
I'd yeah, we can
And
do that face to face.
to set minds at ease, I would also say, like face to face or otherwise, mm, um, I've worked in some industries that are heavily regulated, like the Metropolitan Police, the police force, the NHS has it financed. A lot of the time, as long as you state that this is for, like to include so that it helps take notes and improves the quality of your conversation, and you're happy to share it with them, it doesn't go anywhere else outside of the organization, then people are more than happy to do it, and it allows you to focus on the conversation rather than scribbling every little thing down. So, yeah,
Yeah. So there's a question just popped into chat as we
I
were talking
saw it.
about
Yeah,
that. So, but to set it as a benefit. Look, this is why I want to do it. It's for both of our benefits, so we can get to the point that we're trying to achieve together better, faster. So,
indeed. And in a face-to-face meeting, I would say you've got there are some options. You could take a voice note on your phone. Phones are actually excellent tools for this, and just pull that in and have it transcribed by a tool. Well, there's lots of tools that will do that now. But another one that is I know because a colleague uses it is Otter. So that's that. This is the O and then the blue dashes in the middle of that standalone tool section. They have a desktop app available. I think Firefly's just released one as well. But a desktop app available which will sit. No, it's not. You can have it on your computer in the room, records what's going on. And in fact, I used that last week to conduct some interviews with a company that we were doing some executive level interviews to understand what's going on with AI in their business. So it worked perfectly fine. In fact, it was excellent. So
yeah.
a couple of options.
Good, good. So, okay, so we've done the mindset, we've talked about the tools which pretty much everyone will have access
Yeah.
to. How can we start to use this? How can we build a consistent success? Okay, so what we're going to do in this part is we're going to talk about how you can implement part of this thinking, some practical ways of implementing this into a sales process. Okay, and what we thought we'd do is, because this might feel a little overwhelming, yeah, we're going to give you a lot and we've got 30 minutes left. We're going to get the recordings out to everybody anyway. We're going to break it down into just concentrate on this for a segment of time. So we're going to break it down into fortnightly segments where if you just do this piece after 90 days, you'll have integrated this thinking in the way in which you work. Yeah. So the first part, that first couple of weeks, start thinking like a partner. Yeah. Just play with the AI, start talking to it, start asking it stuff. Your personal life, as much as your business life, just so you start to get used to the fact that this is something. I actually use the sum one mentality because I'm a bit weird, but anyway, yeah, that is there to help you. What we can then do is also start to think about the sales process that you're going to embed this into. So I talk about the value framework. That's the one that's out of the book. It's very similar to many other sales processes. Not doing anything super special there. Yeah. What are we trying to do when we sell? Well, ultimately, it's about 5 things, isn't it? Yeah. Having the right opportunities and then doing the right research so that we can have the right conversations to deliver the right solutions, which will drive the right outcomes. People buy outcomes, people buy results. And that is as good a starting point for the right opportunities as any. Who can we deliver that sort of stuff for? So that's what we're going to use here. We're just going to use that as a basis to integrate these different ways in which you can apply these partnering plays. And you can apply all of them and combinations of them across all elements. So there's almost an infinite number of ways in which we could do stuff here. We're picking out some which are going to give you high impact. So have a play, have a bit of a think. How can we start to use this? Because as we start to hit the next fortnight, this is where we're going to start talking about the validate part of the value framework. So this is the right opportunities. So here we talk about profiling the value proposition and messaging. So I love to say to people on training, what are the most important three little words that you hear? Yeah, it's not I love you. It's ideal customer profile, because I'm sad. Yeah. And really, this is where we can start to think about, so what are the criteria of someone that we can get outcomes for that are going to be valuable for them? We use these to qualify, disqualify. There's probably a whole other webinar on just disqualification and what a key sales ability competence that is. And so how we can start to assign the activity to the people where we're going to really make a difference. Because we want to start to talk about our value proposition. We want to start to form that. Or as I'll say to people, value proposition. Too often I see proposition. Yeah, me, we, I. It's all about the company. Well, no, that's not the value piece that the company is looking for, the customer is looking for. So here, one of the things we do in training quite often is get people thinking about pain and prize. Pain and prize. What pain do the customers have? You know, problems they're trying to solve, struggles, challenges, issues. What's the prize that they're going to get? Yeah, what is that opportunity? What's it, that promised land? What does it look like? The better we understand that stuff, the better we can put together our messages. And the better we can then start to take that message and put it into the multitude of channels that there are now. Multitude of channels, so many different ways to do that. So that's what we would look at in this first part. That's what a good salesperson would have their head around. There are ways in which we can get the AI to help us through how we interact and partner with it. So Tom, talk us through that piece.
Yeah, 100%. I think the big thing here is and this will be a common thread as we go through the application of this, is this is not about going through and teaching you brand new ways of working. It's about building on what you're already doing, or what good could or should look like, and then layering in using the AI to help you do that at scale, at pace, add consistency, quality, you name it, all the classic checkboxes that we're sold on that AI can deliver for us. So in this example, you can just click through a couple, so you get the three at the top there, Fred. So we've done all this work in terms of the value, this stage of the value framework, to identify our ICP, define our messaging, and clarify what our value prop is. And we can use AI in all of those. We can use, frankly, all of the superpowers to do that I spoke about earlier. But we're not going to delve into that. What I want you to do is to start thinking about those things as now data, or context is a word that I use all the time. Context that we can leverage in a number of different ways within our go-to-market motion, our sales process, but particularly how we can help AI understand what we want to achieve. If you go to the next section, Fred, or the next build. So every single one of those tools, whether it's Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, has the ability out of the gate, even on the free versions, for you to create a reusable AI tool. That could be in its simplest form, a chat that persists, or a standard prompt you might put into a chat. If you have, which you do now, even on the free versions, create custom GPTs or skills in Claude, gems in Gemini, you could do all of those things. And if I'm saying words, by the way, that don't make sense, feel free to post up in the chat and ask me what those things mean. And at their most extreme, you could turn these into automations. But the idea being they all operate a really similar way, which is we see the need to constantly align or adjust potentially our messaging to a new ICP or definitely to a specific prospect. But how can we do that rapidly? This is where the box on the right hand side, we need to add some extra data, some extra nuance, some prospect context. Could be research, could be a scrape of their LinkedIn profile, could be a summary of a meeting we might have had prior to this, or a WhatsApp conversation, or a dictation of what we might have said at a big marketing event, like an exhibition or something like that. Doesn't really matter. Context is fundamentally just information we can feed into an AI to help it understand more about what we know. And you'll see me stress this word context all the time because context is what separates okay use of AI from amazing use of AI. And it's typically the biggest thing that I see as the barrier for people getting the results they expect from it versus something generic. And it's worth just harping on about it because context is a thing also that means that every interaction or everything we create becomes unique and specific to who we're talking to, and just not some ubiquitous glob of just AI nonsense that we see so much on things like LinkedIn or in automated email flows. When we've got that data and we push it into our reusable AI tool, which has got all the information about us, our business, the messaging, all that stuff, what we then get is a tailored prospecting output. This allows us, because it's something we can reuse time and time again in the moment or even have running in the background, we have then got aligned messaging, but it's truly personalized to your prospect and it's delivered at speed. It's taking what's in your brain and the way that you would work and then turning it into something that you can deliver time and time again.
Okay, so at this stage, if we start to kick off how we're going to run through our sales process by building this solid foundation with all that contextuality and all that data, we're up and running. And if
Mhm.
we're kind of imagine we're in a race with competitors, we're ahead. We're ahead of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, if we keep working through this, the next part, the align part. So just spend a couple of weeks thinking about doing that, starting a couple of projects, putting together that thinking, building up that way of working. We can move into the right research piece. So typically, again, nothing massively new here. What will we be talking about? Account planning, change drivers, customer value. So account plans. Yeah, plans are nothing, planning is everything. Meant nothing to me when I first came across that. I thought it was gobbledygook. But realised that this was all about thinking. Yeah, that's what Dwight Eisenhower was saying. It's that actually you do your thinking and you do your processing so that when you put your plan into effect, that it's probably going to go wrong, or you can go to plan B, C, and D pretty quickly. So yeah, look, there are so many different ways in which you can build account plans. There's a template up on screen there. What are your objectives? Who are decision makers? SWOT from your side, SWOT from their side. Who are the competition? Who do they perceive as the competition, good and bad? And so what are the actions that you're going to drive through? Okay, we can take that through. That can be a whole ton of training itself. Another thing that I encourage salespeople to do, particularly if part of the plan and part of the approach is to go high early, which is a good move in many cases, is to think about what are those change drivers, what are those things which are going to be affecting the people at the top of the organization. Yeah, the regulatory, the economic, the social, the political, the environmental, the competitive, the technological drivers which are changing the world that their business is operating in, and which means they've got to change the way their business operates. Figure out some of that stuff. This is how to open doors at a senior level. Because what this does, it helps us to understand the mystery of customer value. Hat tip to Mike Wilkinson, who taught me this, that value is a mystery. We don't know what it is. Customer probably doesn't know what it is. But together we can solve that mystery by processing stuff and working things out together, making sense with people. And that's what a good salesperson will do. So again, Tom, talk us through how we're going to bring that thinking in integrated with our kind of partnering with AI as well.
Yeah, so I don't talk about this. And I'm going to credit you because you did come up with this. Is like we're not talking now about account planning, or we are, but what we're really calling it now is an account brain because a plan historically is just a document that gets created and reviewed quarterly, maybe. I've seen account plans get reviewed every 2 to 3 years. Um, so it's something now we're moving from something that's just created in the moment and is a probably more a record of history than it is something that is living and breathing, and that's where we need to be moving to. Again, in all of the technology that I mentioned in terms of the large language models like Claude and Gemini, you have access to projects or folders or some equivalent here, which allow you to create repositories or folders of information about a specific account. You can be feeding insights into there, and we'll come to insights a bit later on, but around all the various things that Fred has said. Again, the framework doesn't shift, just the way that we leverage it does. But rather than you having to make links between all of these things and find insight and find ways, find those places where value can be found, can be explored with your prospect, AI is going to be able to help join the dots for you because it would be almost impossible as a human to do it all. You'll see the big, bold statements, but there'll be subtlety and nuance across all of these different things that the AI will start being able to help you spot. And what this essentially means for me in my world and the way that I work is that Claude is my account brain, and I have various projects and folders associated with different accounts. But because my Claude can hook into my email, can hook into HubSpot and see all the information that's synced there and the tasks that I have against prospects and the account, the stakeholder map and all that kind of stuff, I leverage all these different data sources that are live, constantly being updated, and I can pull that into my HubSpot that then is my brain telling me exactly what's going on inside that account at the moment, what it looks like from a future perspective, and what it's looked like from a historical one. I can't do that. It's humanly impossible. This makes it possible, and it's way better than trying to maintain a Excel file or a Google Doc or a Word document on an account. Way
Or
better.
all of those, or
All
all of
of the
those at
above. Yeah,
once, because
way better
that's
than all
where
the
all the
above.
info lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
So account plans are dead. Account plans are dead.
It's a bold claim, but I feel like it's a fair one. It should be
But
anyway.
if we're going to talk about this on LinkedIn, that's the only way to pronounce things like this. You've got
Yeah.
to kill something to make
Get
anything
some
interesting.
clickbait. Yep, that's exactly it.
Right. So working through the value framework, those first couple of stages, the validate, the align, so the opportunity, the research, we are in such a strong position. Do that for a couple of weeks. So then the next couple of weeks where you're really doubling down on doing something else with the AI, which is all about leverage, which is the right conversations. So right conversations, this is about your insight, the questions. It's the way you structure meetings. So insight, we've used this word a couple of times. I always see it as like shining the light on something, finding something that's going to be interesting to the people we're going to speak to. Maybe it's a different perspective, something they haven't thought of, something we know that they're worried about. And we've got our own kind of thinking around that, shining that light. It's worth us just taking a little moment then, I think, Tom, on how we can use the AI just to generate that insight and to give us that little nugget that's going to set us apart.
Yeah, and this one's quite a quick one, but all of the tools now have got the ability to schedule activities in them. And before that was a mainstay of like automation tools. But they've all got that being built into them. So right now I have scheduled activities in Claude that run at certain times that go off and get me insight in a specific market. So you talked earlier on that respect framework that you've got about socio and economic things and things like that. And all of those things, they won't sit on a company's website and they won't be on their LinkedIn page, but they're things that that prospect would be aware of that are driving decisions in their business and in their marketplace. They're the things where you probably will find insight. So having that regular scrape of information, perfect for a situation like this. And again, these are things that you set up once, let it run. And every time you go in to look at that account brain, because we're feeding it with live information, it becomes real. And something, or say real time. And something else that you just triggered in me as well is I noticed that one of the points that people are saying is that more people in the decision process with this account brain and with this insight coming in and all this context that we're generating, it's very easy then to then start using that account brain to mix or change your messaging depending upon who you're talking to in a given meeting. One minute I might be talking to a CFO, and the next it's a CRO who have got completely different value sets and motivators for why they're buying potentially, or things that are triggering for them. that the fact that this context lives in this centralized space, or we have access to it from a centralized location, means that we can very rapidly adjust anything that we've been working on to suit that new audience. And I think that is just something that's really important in terms of finding ways to create insight that you can then work forwards together on, to establish where value might sit.
Yeah, we can work across different functions and up and down different levels because
Yep.
there's different stuff which people care about.
Yeah.
So again, not necessarily there's no new message there, but the ability to do that super quick. But you need to know what you're doing to be able to benefit from this.
Yes.
And this is something where look, I'm going to put my hand up and say I let my ego get in the way of this here, which is about questions. But we know questioning skills are so important to sales. I wouldn't use AI to help me ask questions. No, Fred, you're an experienced salesperson. You don't need that. However, why not have a little leg up? It's still me who's going to decide whether to ask it in the moment or not. But if I've got a selection of stuff, particularly if it's pulled out of the deep insight, deep perspective, it's a better level conversation that I was just ignoring the ability to have. So that's my little kind of fessing up for the sake of other people who might watch you go, no, 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 I don't need it for that. You still decide what you're going to say and do, but just having that selection and going through that planning, that thinking process, and maybe what the AI is suggesting. Oh, well, actually, no. I know in this case, I'm going to ask it like this.
I think as well, if you ask the question in a sales situation that doesn't necessarily move your sale along, but helps establish you as someone credible and a thought leader, that's as much value as something they say that directly contributes to a sale in terms of qualification or disqualification.
Yeah, yeah. So salesperson, sense maker. We are there to provide clarity. That stuff will set you
Mm.
apart, and it's the way in which you can ask a smart question. So look, we can use it for that. Plug it into a meeting structure so you have the discipline to do that. So again, look, we're sort of picking speed up a little bit here. I've got an eye on the clock, but I think we've also got the balance as to what we're talking about within the process, right? And if you're doing all this stuff early doors and you're building your brain and you're
Hmm.
feeding it and giving it all the goodness, the rest of the stuff just kind of drops out.
It does.
Because
It
as we
starts to fall out.
move into the underpin piece, so this is where we're putting together proposals, we're building presentations, we're starting to tell stories. Yeah, so proposals. Um, Again, I don't think it's an area salespeople do well, or certainly lots of the areas I work in, it's still something that people don't like doing. And there's structures to do it. Again, there's structures for most things in selling. That's the whole point. You learn these playbook structures, frameworks, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. If you're feeding your brain with all this stuff, it's going to help you write a proposal in whatever format you want. And it's pretty much the same as if you're a person. You fed your brain with the information about what they're telling you, and then you're going to have to regurgitate that back. Have a hand doing it. Have a hand
Hmm.
doing it. I mean, that's my basic advice. I don't know if you'd kind of give anything a bit more advanced on that.
No, I think the thing with the AI, like I said, like people sometimes often quite bad at creating proposals, but when you find a way that works for you, works for the organization or sales function, it's like, how do I then turn that? We talked earlier about repeatable skill. How do you take maybe the discrete sections of it, like here, and turn those into repeatable skills that you can then build and then use it to stress test what you're creating? Even if you create stuff without the AI, you can use the AI to challenge it, like we talked about earlier. Or if you are wanting to find ways to knit insight in, maybe use the AI in that capacity, or to oh, what was the other one I was going to say? If there's some challenge with regards to some objections that have already been flagged in the discovery process that you know you're going to be running into, make sure they're there, but use AI to problem solve for those and present that in your proposal. It's as again, it comes back to this idea of it's not one dimensional. It's not replacing what we do with proposals, but it's helping us to create these things faster and at pace, potentially working off a template to begin with, but ultimately creating much more personalized solutions that, if we're honest, we all know we've done the whole copy paste. That'll do for that prospect slide. I'll just change their company name and it fits close enough. It happens, but nowadays with AI, there isn't really an excuse for doing that. Everything we send out that is going to be scrutinized by a client, proposals, probably the biggest one, should be personalized and should have the benefit of insight that you've generated in partnership with AI now.
Yeah, partnership with them, partnership with AI, which kind of leads us into presentations. Presentations have structures, whether it is the most basic one, beginning, middle, end. We get trained that at school, don't we? But not all presentations I see have that. Yeah. The biggest thing, I think I kind of alluded to this earlier, I see is to just, we could say this for many things, but certainly presentation and using the challenge element that AI can do. Can you just check that what I'm saying is about them and not too much
Hmm.
about me? Because we fall into that trap. It's very, very common. Equally, storytelling. So this is where we're kind of saying, hey, look, we're not just giving everything to the AI. We're not losing the human in this. No, we want to still do these very, very human things that the human has to bring to the party, except we're in a far better place to do it. We've got more info, more insight, more things which we can drill down to. So I think I just stole your thunder there.
You did, but it's all right. I'll take it.
Did I? Oh, that's all right. Actually, just double check. So yeah, spotting the gaps, testing structure. Anything else? No, it's a self-centeredness. I think I've got a bit of a hobby horse about that at the moment because I'm
No, no, I
I'm
do too. So
still seeing a lot of people doing very selfish presentations and then wondering why they're not being successful. Okay, so yeah, keep it moving on then. So, begin with the end in mind. We're all about delivering outcomes. That's what people are looking for. So everything is driving towards this. So yeah, making sure we're doing that. Having reviews with people. Yeah, quarterly business reviews, quarterly value reviews, and how we can keep doing things to build the relationship. How we can, well, I'd say, really, you say this, pull things out this brain we've got and just keep dropping it in because we know it's going to be useful for them. We'll have
yeah.
so much information that's valuable.
And I think that's it. Like everything, hopefully what you as an audience take from this is the fact that we're not with the AI, and I said I use the word context a lot. We are constantly building the AI's understanding and context for our client or our prospect. And it, like you said earlier, Fred, the more we do that, the more we create systems that do that on autopilot, the easier it is for us to take action at any point of the sales cycle. But particularly as it nears its conclusion, we are able to just like almost instantaneously harness that massive amount of insight and context to help us win that deal or help us move that deal in our favor in some way, shape, or form. And so it could be overwhelming and feel like, oh my God, I've got all these things to pull in. If you pulled in 10% of what we've talked about today, you're going to be immeasurably better than you were yesterday. And then the next week, it's like, let's find a few other little bits of information and insight we can push into our brain. But the more you do it, the easier the whole sales cycle becomes. And then the engagement with that prospect or that client now as they go into life as a customer or client.
And I think what you just said there, can I underline it? That just start doing something, just doing a little bit early on, baby steps. If you're not doing anything like this, you'll start to see the benefit and it'll become natural in doing more and more. You've been doing this for a long time. This is your job. You're looking to be pushing the frontiers of it, yeah? But anyone can get started on it and will see a difference. I know because I've worked with people who started at zero and while we've been doing training have actually started integrating this and they're a better place. They're already doing better stuff for their customers. So look, there we go. We've gone very quickly through the value
Hmm.
framework. There's plenty of other areas which we can think about how to integrate the AI into that. Has this been helpful? Has this been helpful? I hope that this has. I'd love to know who's going to apply the thinking. And have we earned the right to give you a 3-minute sales pitch? I'm not going to do it if I don't get a couple of yeses into either my Q&A uh, or the chat down there. Have we earned the right? If not, we'll shut up and go home. Or maybe people are thinking, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff here.
There
Um,
is a lot of stuff, but
there is.
bite-sized chunks.
Okay, in the Q&A thing, which only I can see, I've got a couple of yeses. So, right. So, Tom and I have been thinking about this, and we believe that together is stronger. So, what have we done? We've created the Collaborative Selling Accelerator Amplified. So, Collaborative Selling Accelerator, what I do, amplification, what Tom does. So, if you look at this, I'm not expecting you to look at all the detail. If you are doing a 90-day Collaborative Selling Accelerator with me, there's a ton of stuff that we use to help you get results. If you go onto Tom's sales program, there's a ton of stuff that he'll use to help you get results. Stronger together. You can hopefully see the crossover that we've already got. So what we've done is picked all the best bits, crashed it together, which was quite a human operation, ironically, wasn't it?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
we did it. Yeah, got the hours to check whether we made sense or not. And we believe that this will not only improve the way in which you sell, it will also collapse the time in which you can get speed to
Mm.
competence. So this is why we've made this a challenge for ourselves as much as anyone else who's on this, which is a 6-week program. So it's a 6-week program, and it is all about feeding into real life opportunities. That's the stuff which makes a difference in all the work Tom and I do. It's all about real life stuff. It's not theory and sales for the sake of it. With every single thing that can make a difference. So, what's the offer? Okay, if you want to buy those things off us separately, it's going to cost you £5,000. We've put these together and we've decided that we'll come up with a special price, but we'll also make it risk-free and we will guarantee it. So you've got the content, you've got actually integrating it with AI. We'll tell you how to do some of that stuff Tom's talk about and guarantee that. Guarantee that. So basically, if you do all this stuff and it doesn't work for you, you get your money back. Okay, simple as that. Easiest way to do a guarantee. So when are we running the next one? Next one is kicking off on 16th of June. 16th of June. If that's something that's interesting to you, there is the QR code. So do the QR code thing, sign up for that. I'll leave that QR code there while I flick through some slides, just showing the things which we do in each of these modules. It's ambitious. The AI is there to help us. We are there to help you. But if you're not going to do the work, then again, don't apply to it. But if you think, hey, I'll have a bit of this because I can hear what you're saying and I do want a bit of a hand, then absolutely you can see what the things we are covering are going to be. So there we go, module 5 and module 6. So the things that we've talked about there. So it's all about improve capacity, improve quality. And so there is a 100% money back guarantee which backs that up. End of the day, we want to give people a steep learning curve. Always amuses me when people say, "Oh, steep learning curve." No, that's good. You get results faster and smoother. So that is our offer to you. And I think we have landed bang on the